For more of this kind of content, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation room of the Earth Defense Station, located 200 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean. Through the reinforced windows, she watched the sleek silver vessel hover motionless against the dark sky. After 3 decades of radio signals and mathematical exchanges, humanity finally faced its first alien contact. The Zephroni ship hung there like a question mark nobody could answer. Commander James Rodriguez entered quietly, his weathered face showing the weight of the moment. "They're requesting a ground meeting," he said, holding up a digital transcript. "They want diplomats, scientists, and military leadership present. 3 representatives each." Sarah's hands trembled slightly. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, yet nothing felt real. The Zephroni had first made contact 5 years ago through radio waves. Their message simple: "We seek peaceful dialogue." Since then, communication had been careful, methodical, and utterly formal. They had never requested a face-to-face meeting until today. "Where?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. "The Antarctic Research Facility," Rodriguez said. "Neutral ground, remote enough that if things go wrong, there's buffer zone." They specifically requested an isolated location. The facility at Lake Vostok was already being prepared. Within hours, Sarah found herself aboard a military transport jet, watching ice formations pass beneath them. Beside her sat Colonel Marcus Webb, humanity's lead military strategist, and Ambassador David Okafor, a seasoned diplomat who had negotiated 3 international treaties before breakfast and still managed to seem calm. "They're taking a risk too," Okafor said thoughtfully, staring out the window. "If they wanted to harm us, they wouldn't travel all this way. They could simply have attacked from orbit." Webb grunted. "Logic assumes they think like us." Sarah couldn't help but smile slightly at that. Webb had spent 30 years in military service preparing for alien invasion scenarios. The thought of peaceful cooperation genuinely unsettled him. The Antarctic facility was brilliant white against endless ice. The landing zone had been hastily prepared, its runway cut through centuries of frozen wilderness. 3 figures stood waiting as the Zephroni shuttle descended. Sarah's breath caught as the airlock opened. The alien team emerged, their forms tall and angular, skin a deep silver that seemed to absorb light. Their leader stepped forward, movements fluid and precise. "I am Technician Voss," the alien said in flawless English, delivered through a translation device in her chest. "I have studied your languages for this meeting. I am ready to listen." Sarah stepped toward her, extending her hand in greeting. This gesture of trust was deliberate. Open palms, no weapons, human warmth meeting unknown otherness. Voss paused, analyzing the gesture, then placed her elongated fingers against Sarah's palm. The contact was cool, gentle. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah said softly. "We have waited a long time for this conversation." What followed was a breakthrough. Voss explained that the Zephroni had been observing humanity for 40 years. They had not made contact earlier because they needed to understand whether humans were capable of united action. The radio signals had been a test. How would this divided species respond to an external stimulus? "You surprised us," Voss admitted. "Your nations competed, yes, but you also cooperated. You worked toward a single response. This told us you could change, You could unify when it mattered. Webb leaned back in his chair. So what do you want from us? An alliance, Voss replied calmly. There are others in the galaxy less peaceful than us. We face a threat from the Kelrath Dominion. Your solar system is in their projected expansion path. In 5 years, perhaps 10, they will reach you. We can help you prepare, but only if we work together. Sarah felt the room shift around her. Humanity was no longer the only player on the board. The stakes had suddenly become cosmic. 3 months of negotiations followed. The Antarctic facility became a hub of activity, where Zephroni engineers worked alongside human scientists, exchanging technology and knowledge. Sarah found herself learning concepts that seemed to defy physics, yet worked with mathematical precision. Voss became her closest collaborator, and between them grew genuine respect. But not everyone was convinced of peace. Media outlets split into camps. Some celebrated humanity's entrance into a galactic community. Others feared betrayal, claiming aliens always deceived. Governments remained cautious, with many nations refusing to fully commit to the alliance. Colonel Webb voiced his concerns during a late-night strategy session. We don't know their biology, their psychology, their limits. What if they're leading us into a trap? What if they're not? Sarah countered. What if we're about to join a civilization thousands of years ahead of us? Webb, they've offered us defensive technology that could protect every major city on Earth. Technology we don't understand, Webb shot back. Technology that makes us dependent on them. The tension came to a head when a Zephroni transport crashed during a storm over the Mediterranean Sea. The incident killed 5 Zephroni engineers and 3 human liaison officers. The Zephroni response was swift and surgical. Their military ships descended from orbit and surrounded the crash site, sealing the area hermetically. They're isolating themselves, Webb said, watching satellite feeds. They don't trust us. Sarah realized something else was happening. The crash hadn't been an accident. Voss confirmed it during their encrypted communication. A human extremist group had sabotaged the transport. They had feared the increasing cooperation between the species and taken violent action. Your planet contains those who reject unity, Voss said, her tone measured, but carrying an undercurrent of anger. They attacked us. What will you do? This was the critical moment. Sarah stood before the United Nations Security Council, appealing for immediate action. Within 24 hours, the extremist cell was identified and arrested across 3 continents. The governments of Earth, united for perhaps the first time on a significant issue, released a joint statement condemning the attack and recommitting to the alliance. Voss accepted the explanation, but something had changed. The Zephroni became more formal, their interactions more structured. They began requesting separate living quarters, separate research facilities. Sarah confronted her one evening in the observation deck overlooking the Antarctic expanse. You've lost trust in us, she said quietly. No, Voss replied, her silver skin catching the pale sunlight. I have lost trust in your species' ability to control its own members. You claim unity, yet violence comes from within your borders. How can I trust soldiers when your scientists betray them? Because that's what being human means, Sarah said. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We have people who are afraid, who lash out. But we also have people who sacrifice, who learn, who try to be better. The ones who attacked you, they're the minority. Most of humanity wants peace. Voss turned to face her. Then prove it. Show me your species can choose unity over fear. The discovery came from an unexpected source. One of Webb's junior officers, Captain Elena Moreno, was reviewing communications when she found something buried in encrypted channels. A planned strike against the Zephroni ship in orbit, not by extremists, but by a faction within a major government that believed aliens represented an existential threat. Elena brought the information to Sarah, her hands shaking. They plan to fire on the Zephroni vessel when it passes over the Pacific. They're calling it a defensive measure. Sarah's world tilted. This wasn't a fringe group. This was institutional power, playing God with humanity's future. She had minutes to decide. Expose the conspiracy and risk destabilizing multiple governments, or let it happen and lose any chance at peace. She called Webb, Okafor, and Voss to an emergency session. The moment of truth had arrived. Sarah laid out everything. The conspiracy, the names, the military coordinates, the timing. The room fell silent. You gave us this information, Voss said slowly to Sarah. Your own people were planning this. You revealed it to me, knowing it would cause fracture in your governments. Because it's the right thing to do, Sarah replied. Because if we choose violence now, we become the threat. I'm betting on humanity's better nature. Webb stood abruptly. If we expose this, governments fall. Alliances crumble domestically. Investigations will take years. Yes, Sarah said. But the alternative is war, and we would lose. It was Okafor who made the call to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Within hours, the conspiracy unraveled. Military officers were arrested, governments issued statements of apology, and investigations began. It was chaos, but it was honest chaos. The Zephroni response surprised everyone. Instead of withdrawing, Voss requested a public appearance with Sarah. Together, they addressed the United Nations, with Voss explicitly confirming that humans within government had disclosed information to prevent conflict. She praised humanity's capacity for self-correction. We came to evaluate your species, Voss said through translators. What we discovered is this. Humans are not defined by your worst moments, but by your choice to acknowledge them and do better. This is rare in the galaxy. The alliance solidified. Technology began flowing more freely. Defense systems were installed globally. But more importantly, representatives from every nation began working together at the Antarctic facility. For the first time, humanity operated as one species. 6 months into the deepening alliance, Sarah received a stunning revelation. The Zephroni hadn't actually discovered proof of the Kelrath Dominion expansion yet. The threat was theoretical, projected from years of data analysis and past patterns. Why didn't you tell us from the beginning? Sarah demanded, feeling betrayed. Voss was quiet for a long moment. Because your species needed external pressure to unite. We observed this for decades. Your divisions seemed insurmountable. The only way forward was if you faced a collective threat. Sarah was furious. You manipulated us. We inspired you, Voss corrected gently. The technology we offered is real. The partnership is real. The threat will eventually be real. We simply accelerated your readiness. Sarah, you chose cooperation. We did not force it. That choice came from within humanity. Sarah wrestled with this revelation, but ultimately understood the Zephroni logic. They had taken a calculated risk that humans would respond constructively to challenge. They had been right. Humanity had grown in 6 months more than it had in the previous 50 years. The real test came when signals finally confirmed the Kelrath Dominion's approach. 5 years away, not 10. They sent a message through deep space: surrender or be absorbed. Webb, now confirmed as Earth's chief defense officer, led the response. Earth had been given Zephroni weapons technology, but the strategy was uniquely human, a blend of aggressive defense with diplomatic channels left open. They built automated defense systems, trained pilots, and established evacuation protocols. But they also prepared communication arrays to continue negotiation attempts. When the Kelrath fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, humanity didn't cower. The Zephroni fleet formed an alliance with Earth's expanded defense network. It was beautiful and terrible, 2 species working in perfect synchronization. The Kelrath, seeing genuine unity rather than the divided targets they expected, chose negotiation over invasion. The Dominion offered a deal: neutrality and trade rights. No conquest. Humanity had passed the cosmic test. 1 year later, Sarah sat in the observation deck with Voss, watching Earth rotate below them. The Antarctic facility had been expanded into a true diplomatic center. Young humans and Zephroni worked side by side. Technology flourished. Conflict had decreased dramatically as nations pulled resources toward mutual defense and cooperative research. Your species will survive, Voss said. It wasn't a question. We had to, Sarah replied. Once we understood that unity was the only viable option, everything changed. Fear stopped being the primary motivator. Purpose became it. Voss extended her hand, and Sarah took it. It had become their ritual of trust. What's the real lesson? Voss asked. The one your species will teach the galaxy? Sarah thought carefully. That we don't have to be the same to be united. We don't have to think alike to work together. We just have to choose cooperation over fear, understanding over judgment, and the future over the past. Will all humans remember this lesson? Voss asked. Sarah smiled sadly. No, some will forget. But enough will remember. And that's how humanity survives. Not perfectly, but persistently. We fail, we learn, we try again. That's our actual superpower. Voss's skin flickered with a color Sarah had learned to recognize as satisfaction. Then I believe we have chosen the right partner in the universe. As they watched the blue marble of Earth turn slowly beneath them, Sarah reflected on the journey. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge not through weapons or walls, but through deciding to become better than its fears. The real victory wasn't defeating the Kelrath. The real victory was becoming a species worthy of the future. Unity doesn't require perfection. It requires the continuous choice to acknowledge our failures, correct our course, and prioritize our shared future over our individual fears. True strength isn't measured by how well we hide our flaws, but by our courage to face them honestly and our commitment to becoming better because of them.